Hello, my name is Sarah, and in this video I will go over the rise of Augustus. This is specifically his rise to power and everything you'll need to know, like his strategies and the way he won a republic views. Octavian's rise to power starts off when Caesar's will is read in 44 BCE. At 19 years old, he inherits more than money. He inherits Caesar's name, his social and political networks, and overall just his army, which was the most important to his rise to power. To Romans, Caesar was both a hero and a threat who did good things, but the Senate thought that he would ruin the Roman Republic by becoming a dictator. Octavian would connect himself to Caesar to become a figure of authority. So then the public wouldn't see a guy who inherited an army or money. They would see someone who's strong and ready to lead, someone who would be able to make alliances and gain the public trust. The next part is when Octavian steps into power. According to the RGDA, Octavian trained an army to defend Rome. Most of this loyalty came from Caesar's veterans who were already committed, but they weren't really loyal to Octavian. They were most likely loyal to Caesar's memory. But they gained his trust by when Octavian killed the people who killed Caesar, and he got his revenge. And this made them more loyal, especially since he kept rewarding them with money and everything else. This would be really good for the future because Rome was in chaos. There were civil wars due to Caesar's death, and this caused more people to be divided. So when Octavian was here, he would gain the public respect. This is Octavian's first lesson in leadership. He needed to show that he was responsible and better than Caesar without being taken down. He needed to gain power without looking dangerous. He promoted himself by using his military, being generous, and showing his moral beliefs and religion. Octavian studied Caesar closely about his victories and errors too. Caesar tended to accept honors that made him appear above the Republic, and this made him vulnerable to assassination and led up to his death. Octavian learned how to balance visible power and public approval, and in the RTDA, Octavian claims to have refused titles and awards that were given to him. He used Caesar's strategies like making alliances and rewarding loyalty, but he avoided things that made Caesar look threatening when he was alive, like he never called himself a king or a dictator, and he never showed his personal wealth. This showed that he was not a tyrant and that he was just a leader. To the Roman people, Octavian became a provider and a stabilizer, basically a symbol of order. He funded games to keep people entertained, he distributed grain to ease hunger, and he settled veterans on land to secure loyalty. He restored temples to honor tradition, and he would build bridges and create paths to make traveling easier for people. Octavian would use these things to win over the people's trust, and especially he would do this thing called clementia, which originally derived off of Caesar. This is basically clemency, and when you give mercy to someone instead of killing them. These were acts that were charitable and strategic because it made him look more merciful, and it made Octavian more needed in the community. In 27 BCE, Octavian restored power to the Senate and offered and gave more respect to the tradition and started restoring it more. This is when he started changing his name to Augustus Caesar to show that he was honorable, and changed his last name to be more connected to Julius Caesar. To Romans, Octavian wasn't just Caesar's heir, but he became Augustus to be known as the restorer of order. He presented himself by respecting traditions while consolidating power to make sure that there was less war and stabilizing the republic without provoking fear of monarchy or tyranny. By the time Octavian becomes Augustus, his rise to power is basically complete, from his consolidation of authority and his presentation in the Republic. In the RGDA, he claims that he restored the Republic and he reestablished the Senate and the people of Rome. This showed his dominance as constitutional and renewal rather than personal rule. Augustus gathered power with military command and showed how he was granted this legally by the Senate and the people. This preserves the old republic and is now, even though real power stayed in his hands. His impact was important because civil wars ended, institutions were revived, and provinces were stabilized. Rome was filled with temples and was restored again. And this was all showed in his achievements in the RTDA. Ultimately, Rome accepted Augustus's authority because it gave peace, tradition, and stability. The RGDA shows that he restored order and just continued to make the public like him more. In the RGDA, Augustus tells his story of restoration, but looking back, we see the full picture, especially what you learn in class. A guy who was originally inheriting an army started his rise of power. His rise was important to Rome, but in the RGDA, it's biased. There's a lot of inconsistencies because at that time, Augustus was old and sick, he was dying, and his perspective was not truthful. He never named his rivals, and he most likely forgot about other experiences. He was unreliable in the RGDA because it purposefully made himself look pious and above all else. And this is what caused other things like in the 12 Caesars, where it shows that perspective. But anyway, that is the end of this, and I hope you all liked it, and I hope it was helpful.